Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? And worse, within the work environment. They've looked at you askance, whispered behind your back, and suddenly, do you realize that you are being seen as the gossip of the company? The most revolting, it's just that you know it's not, but that doesn't seem to matter. If you're watching this video, it's very likely that you're going through, or have already gone through, this invisible pain that many people pretend they don't. See, being unfairly judged at work. And when the accusation is of gossip, everything gets worse. Because gossip in the corporate world is not just a silly word. It is a silent sentence that can isolate you, burn your image, and even close doors to future opportunities. But the most shocking thing about all this, it's just that many times you enter a reputation war without even realizing that you are being targeted. And when you realize, it seems too late. In companies where politics, envy, and toxic competitiveness dominate, people don't need evidence to judge. All it takes is a malicious rumor, a loose phrase in the cafe, a biased look in a meeting, and that's it. Your name is on the lips of gossipers. And the worst? How do you defend yourself from something you've never said? This is exactly where the real psychological hell of the work environment is born. When you work hard, deliver results, are polite, reserved, and yet people look at you as if you did something wrong. And the cruelest, you feel like you need to justify yourself all the time. You start policing yourself with every phrase, every comment, every gesture. He begins to avoid interactions, not for fear of the gossip itself, but because the simple doubt has already been planted in the air. And in corporate environments, where appearances are worth more than truth, doubt destroys more than certainty. And maybe you're wondering, why are they doing this to me? Why did they put me in this role? That is not mine? Is someone sabotaging me? Is this envy? Or was it just a misunderstanding that grew too big? These questions are not an exaggeration. They are part of the emotional reality of thousands of people who experience silent conflicts at work on a daily basis, and many of them carry this unfair guilt for years, not knowing how to reverse it. Because when your reputation is questioned, even if you continue to deliver work, be respectful. All it takes is a group with a louder voice and dirtier intentions to change the narrative about who you are. And you know what hurts even more? It's just that many times, the one who spreads the gossip is someone who hugged you in the company pantry, who has already called you a friend, who has already shared an outburst with you. But in the end, this person was just collecting information, distorting contexts, and taking advantage of their vulnerability. This cruel and silent reality has a name: corporate psychological violence. It doesn't appear on the payslip, it doesn't leave physical bruises, but it eats away at you inside until you start to doubt yourself. And if you're feeling it right now, this inner confusion, this frustration at not understanding what's going on, this fear of saying something and looking guilty, I want you to know you're not alone, and more, that's not your fault. There is a logic behind this type of attack. There's a hidden reason why people accuse you of being a gossip, even though you've done nothing. And yes, there is a way to turn this around without having to demean yourself or get into their dirty game. But before I show you this, I need you to understand, the first step to getting out of this emotional trap is to identify how it starts, because only when you recognize the mechanism can you break the cycle. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you from now on. But first, tell me here in the comments, have you ever been unjustly accused at work? How has this affected you? Your account can help others who are going through exactly the same thing right now. Let's unravel this behind-the-scenes game together, understand who plants these accusations, and above all, how you can protect your professional image before it is destroyed by lies. Do you know what's more disturbing? What really makes you lose your ground? It's just that many times the gossip that started about you, the one that is circulating as if it were absolute truth, was started by someone who, in theory, never had a real reason to attack you. And that's where the danger lies, when you realize that the origin is not in what you did, but in what you represent to someone who feels threatened. Yes, many times these accusations are born from the fear that others have of their growth, of the discomfort that his presence causes. And it's not always about you talking too much. Sometimes it's about you shutting up too much. There are people in the corporate environment who can't stand to see someone silent, focused, discreet, and productive, because this type of behavior causes their own mediocrity to be exposed. So what do? They invent a reason to tarnish their image, because when they label you a gossip, they're actually trying to divert attention from their own insecurity. And this can start in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. A comment thrown into the air as if he didn't want anything. Wow, so-and-so is always talking to the boss. He must be talking about us. Or have you seen how she walks around whispering? This one is not reliable. Ready? The seed of doubt was planted, and in the workplace where everything revolves around reputation, trust, and perception, that little seed can grow like a weed, because the truth, unfortunately, matters less than the most repeated version. If 3 people tell the same lie about you, in the eyes of others, it becomes a fact. I've heard reports of people who were labeled as gossipers just because they had a good relationship with leaders. The person simply had lunch with the boss, something normal, professional, and suddenly they started saying that he was taking and bringing information. Other, even more common cases involve people who have natural charisma. Is that it? They communicate well, are accessible, and someone who is more withdrawn or frustrated with their position begins to see this as a threat. There was one time that a follower told me, he saw me talking to the boss, saw me laughing, and on the same day he started spreading the word that I was pulling the rug out from under everyone. I never spoke ill of anyone. I was talking about a project of mine, but he distorted everything. This is how injustice is born. And do you know why it spreads so fast? Because there is a silent culture in many companies that normalizes judgment without proof. Who prefers to believe the rumor than to make a fair analysis? Because gossip, for many people, is entertainment. And when they put you as the protagonist of this evil soap opera, you become the favorite target of those who live off other people's lives. What revolts me the most is that many times the real gossip is the one who accuses you. Yes, because it's that person who's talking about you behind your back, planting doubt, distorting speech, manipulating the environment. She pretends to be bothered by gossip, but he lives off the gossip he invents about you. And the most perverse, when she accuses you, she positions herself as the victim. She is alert, careful, worried about the team's climate, but it's all just a dirty strategy to discredit you, because while it paints you as a danger, it gains space. It infiltrates among colleagues, gaining the boss's trust, and you are left aside, isolated, judged without having the right to explain yourself. You begin to feel like an intruder in the very environment where you have always given your best. The place where you have always acted ethically, with professionalism, now seems to expel you with looks and silences. And what hurts the most is realizing that no one comes to ask your version. Nobody wants to know if it's true, because it is easier to believe in what generates emotion than in what requires reasoning. And maybe at that moment, you are reliving all this in your mind, remembering a meeting where they cut you off, from a group on Messenger where you were deleted, from a side conversation that stopped when you arrived, from a colleague who changed out of nowhere without explanation. And now it all makes sense, because now you understand. It's not about what you've done, but about how they've distorted what you are. And this is how these unfair accusations are born, in silence, behind the scenes, fueled by biased looks, malicious interpretations, and above all, by the insecurity of those who can't stand to see you growing without having knocked you down. The person can't stand the fact that you're on the rise, being noticed, being respected. even without making a fuss. So she creates a narrative, a version that makes sense to her, and it starts to spread. And the more you try to defend yourself, the more it feels like you're trying to hide something. It is a perverse, cruel, and extremely exhausting cycle because you are being attacked by an invisible enemy, the manipulation of the truth, and that makes you sick. This exhausts us. It makes you question even who you are. You start to wonder if you should talk less, or maybe talk more, if he should smile, or maybe be more serious, if he should get closer to the boss, or keep your distance. You start to recalculate everything, because now your every move can be misinterpreted. Every gesture can be used against you. And the fear is growing, and that's why I'm telling you all this, because this dynamic exists. It is more common than you might think, and it can happen to anyone. With you, with me, with that exemplary colleague who never raises his voice, with the new employee who just wants to work in peace. No one is immune when the environment is toxic, and when the culture of gossip has more space than the truth. But now that you understand how this trap is constructed, you're already one step ahead. You are no longer hostage to doubt. You already begin to see the patterns, the signs, the manipulations disguised as worry. And that gives you power, the power to react with strategy, not desperation. And I'll show you how to recognize these signs clearly so you're never caught off guard again. Because understanding how they label you is just the beginning. The most important thing is to notice when this starts to happen and act before the damage sets in. Let's talk about it now. Now that you understand how these unfair accusations arise, you may be wondering, okay, but how do I realize this is happening to me before it's too late? This question is important, very important, because the big problem with those who are unfairly judged as gossips at work is that the perception is delayed. The person only realizes when he is already marked, when he has already lost space, when the damage is done. And that's exactly why you need to learn to spot the signs while still being able to take action. These signs are silent. They do not arrive with alarm. No one will call you and say, they are accusing you of being a gossip. No, they will manifest themselves through micro-behaviors, looks, silences, absences that did not exist before. And all this, added together, builds a narrative where even without opening your mouth, you have already been labeled. The first sign, and perhaps the most painful, is the change in behavior of your colleagues. People who used to treat you lightly, with respect, with openness, suddenly get dry. They begin to respond with short sentences, to avoid eye contact, to look away when you pass by. Sometimes they even continue to be polite. But there's something there, a subtle detachment, a calculated coldness, and you feel it. The body feels it. The environment changes temperature. Conversations no longer flow in the same way. You enter the room and little by little, the conversation circle cools down. The laughter ceases. And that heavy silence remains, as if your presence had interrupted something that should never have been heard by you. This type of behavior is emotionally devastating, because it is undermining its internal security little by little. You begin to doubt your perception. Is it all in my head? No, it is not. When people stop talking, when they see you, when they start to walk away in a strange way, it's a warning sign. This could mean that something that you didn't even say is already being attributed to you. It is the label acting for you, even before any defense. The second sign you need to pay attention to is the look of distrust coming from above, from your boss, manager, or leader. And mind you, I'm not talking about a deal. Normal demand, a pressure for results. Everyone lives this. I'm talking about that strange look, almost as if he was analyzing you, doubting your posture without having any proof. You notice that he starts to treat you more coldly. Meetings that were once light now have an air of tension. His words change tone. It starts to include you less in strategic decisions, to give you less autonomy. All this because somewhere someone said that you are a dangerous person. And the dangerous in. This case is disguised as a gossip. This is one of the cruelest points of professional injustice, when leadership starts to look at you differently based on corridor narrative and not on facts. This destroys trust, destructures your position, and puts you in a kind of social quarantine where everyone starts walking on eggshells near you as if your name is under observation. And the third sign, this is fatal, is silent exclusion. And pay attention to this point, because it usually happens in a sneaky way. One day you are in a project group with access to decisions, ideas, meetings. The next, they start to leave you out. They schedule conversations and don't warn you. They brainstorm and forget to invite you. A new group is created on the team's WhatsApp, and for some reason you were not included. And when you ask why, they say that it was unintentional. It was a rush. Someone forgot. But you feel it, you know, because when it's deliberate, the body knows. Silence hurts, absence screams. This process of exclusion is extremely common with those who are being labeled negatively, especially as gossips. The idea is to leave you aside, to avoid problems, even without knowing if there is a problem. This is punishment without crime, cancellation without judgment, and the worst, you start to exclude yourself so you don't look like you're forcing your presence, and then the cycle closes. You walk away because you are being pushed away, and those who observe you from the outside think that your isolation is a symptom of guilt. And I know that's painful. This erodes their desire to be in that environment. And that's exactly what whoever labeled you wanted. Undermine you from the inside, silence you, erase you, because the gossip label isn't just about what they say about you, it's about how you're treated afterwards. It's about what they stop saying, doing, offering you. In toxic environments, this happens with frightening frequency. The culture of rumor is stronger than the culture of feedback. Gossip replaces communication, and those who are more discreet, more centered, more analytical often become a target, because silence bothers those who live on poisonous speech. And maybe now, while watching, you're remembering moments like that, of situations in which the signs were there, but you didn't understand at the time. Now it makes sense, right? Now you can connect the dots, and that's a good thing, because understanding what's happening to you is the first step to taking back control. Even if any of these situations I mentioned have already happened to you, or if you are experiencing it now, comment below. I've felt this cut in the air, or I was excluded without knowing why. I want to read what you're going through. Your comment can help others who are also trying to understand these signs. And if you've already identified one or more of these behaviors in your professional environment, stay with me. Because now that you recognize the ground you're treading on, the next step is to learn how to protect yourself, how to shield your image and break that cycle before it destroys you completely. Now that you understand how to identify the signs that you are being unfairly labeled, the next step is crucial. How to protect yourself from this without falling into the trap of justification. Because yes, there is a trap that many people fall into, even with good intentions. The person starts to defend himself too much, to try to explain everything he does, to show everyone that he is innocent, that he did not say anything, that he is professional. And do you know what happens? It looks like guilt. It seems like desperation. It seems that he is trying to hide something. On the other hand, there are those who think, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to shut up. Let them say what they want. But this silence, if it is not well constructed, ends up being interpreted as acceptance, as omission, as someone who hides because he is afraid. And then you enter an emotional crossroads. If you talk too much, you seem guilty. If he is too silent, he confirms the gossip. So what to do? How to protect yourself without getting lost? How to shield your reputation and keep your professional image intact, even when they are trying to dirty it behind the scenes? The answer lies in the posture. It's in how you choose to react, and mainly in how you conduct your image without having to justify yourself all the time. The first thing you need to understand is that those who spread gossip want to see you destabilized. They expect you to react with anger, with impulsiveness, with resentment. They expect you to make a mistake. Let him isolate himself, that he wears out emotionally, because when you lose control, you give them the material they need to say, "See, I knew there was something wrong with him." So your biggest shield is your emotional intelligence. It's your ability to stay calm when everything inside you wants to explode. You don't have to shout that you're innocent. You don't need to write a giant email explaining that you didn't say anything. You just need to act in a way that contradicts the gossip, so clearly and so consistently that little by little their words lose strength in the face of your attitudes. And for that, there is a phrase that can become a powerful weapon in your daily communication. I prefer not to feed conversations that don't build. This phrase has power because she is not aggressive, she doesn't accuse anyone, but at the same time, it delimits its space. It shows that you are not part of the dirty game, that you are not there to reinforce rumors, fuel intrigues, or get involved in said-me-said. When you use this type of language frequently, people start to realize that you have a position. And more than that, they realize that you have limits. And those who have limits earn respect. Another essential strategy is to create silent allies with actions, not speeches, because there's no point in trying to convince others with words that you're not a gossip. The words will sound defensive. Now, if you demonstrate day after day that your focus is on work, that you deliver results, that you respect the team, that you know how to listen without judging, that you act ethically, this builds a solid picture, and a solid image is harder to destroy by flimsy rumors. There is something that many people underestimate in the professional environment, the power of small gestures. Sometimes a good morning said firmly, a "can I help" offered sincerely, a compliment given generously. All this creates a perception of you that speaks louder than any gossip, because even if they say that you are a problematic person, those who live with you and feel your posture on a daily basis will start to doubt the version they are telling. And that's where the third point comes in, reinforcing your image with consistency. And that's much more than just behaving well. It's about building a professional identity, a reputation, a name. Because when you're seen as someone of integrity, focused, committed, loyal, and ethical, it becomes part of your brand. And when that mark is strong enough, it becomes your shield. No one can destroy a solid reputation with flimsy gossip, because people don't believe in a story that doesn't match what they see every day. Now, don't mistake this for perfection. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. Consistent with your values, consistent with their attitudes, and above all, consistent with what you stand for. If you're a person who values respect, practice respect, even when you're disrespected. If you value transparency, be transparent, even when hiding feels more comfortable. If you value ethics, stay ethical, even when everything around you seems dirty, because that's where the shielding happens. When you don't let the dirt of others change your essence, when you protect yourself not by attacking, but by strengthening the best you have, your truth, your posture, your presence. And here's an important detail. You don't need to tell everyone that you're protecting yourself. Its protection is silent, it is invisible, but it is felt, it is perceived, and it begins to manifest itself in the eyes of others when they realize that no matter how hard they have tried to knock you down, you remain standing. Yes, maybe there are still rumors, perhaps there are still crossed comments, but over time they lose strength, they lose impact. Because no one sustains a lie for long in front of a presence that conveys security, firmness, and clarity. And that's his mission now, not to convince anyone, but take a stand, not trying to change their narrative, but building your own. And this narrative is written in their attitudes, in their deliveries, in their energy, in the choices you make, even when no one is watching. If you've made it this far in this video, you've probably been through or are going through this type of situation. And I want to know from you, which of these strategies do you think is most powerful? He comments below using one of the phrases, "Posture is my shield. Attitude overturns rumors," or "Strong reputation, weak gossip." I want to see who here is willing to turn the tables with class without getting dirty. And if you're ready for it, stay with me, because now that you've learned to protect yourself, it's time to go further. It's time to understand how to build a reputation so strong but so solid that no one else can label you or erase you with empty words. And that's what we're going to talk about from now on. Now that you've learned how to protect yourself, how to position yourself without falling into the role of justifier, it's time to take another step. Because protecting your image is important, of course. But what if you went further? What if, instead of just defending yourself, you could turn the tables once and for all? And more, to become immune to gossip. That's right, immune, unattainable, rumor-proof. And no, I'm not talking about magic, nor to pretend that he does not feel it. I'm talking about image play, the most powerful form of shielding within any work environment, and the most neglected by those who are tired, hurt, or discredited. But you won't be one of those people anymore, because now you understand how it all works. Now you are aware. And when consciousness comes in, the game changes. What you need to understand is that in the corporate world, everything is perception. Everything. What people see in you, what they feel when you speak, the energy you transmit when you walk into a room, what your behavior says or doesn't say about who you are, your posture, your delivery, your voice, your look. Everything communicates, all the time, even in silence. Mostly in silence, and that's why some people are able to walk through the storm without getting wet. It is because they build such a strong reputation, but so strong that no one dares to throw mud at them. Not because these people are untouchable, but because their image has more strength than any gossip. And how is this image built? With presence, with repetition, with consistency, with coherence, day after day. Conversation after conversation, project after project, until people can no longer dissociate their figure from the word professionalism, until your name is directly linked to words such as trust, ethics, delivery, balance, vision, respect. When this happens, even if someone tries to plant a lie about you, it doesn't grow. It does not flourish, because the terrain of his image is already occupied by truth. And people feel it. They look at you and say, "No, that doesn't suit him. That doesn't seem like something she would do." And that's when you won. Because when others start to defend you without you having to open your mouth, you have conquered the invisible power that sustains careers, reputation. And here's a hard but necessary truth. Weak people spread gossip. Strong people build reputation. The weak need to talk about you to feel better. The strong prefer to invest their time building something. And do you know why? Because those who are busy growing up don't have time to bring others down. And if they're talking about you, if they are trying to distort your image, it's because you're in the spotlight. It's because in some way you bother you. Its light dazzles those who live in the shadows. Its presence destabilizes those who depend on the absence of others to feel safe. And that's okay. Let them talk. Let them comment. As they talk, you keep growing. But grow now with strategy, with awareness, with emotional authority, with the clarity that your image needs to be managed as a valuable asset. Just as you take care of your health, your time, your money, you need to take care of your reputation. Because at the end of the day, she's the one who will open or close doors for you. Therefore, every time someone tries to label you, try to remember this. You are not what they say. You are what builds. You are what sustains you. You are the one who remains standing even after so many trying to knock you down with weak words. And believe me, over time, masks fall, the truths appear, and justice, even if it takes time, manifests itself. But until then, his strength is not to bow down. It's about staying focused, elegance, the strategy. It's knowing that you have more to offer than any rumor can erase. So now I want to know from you, after everything we've talked about here, what was the passage that marked you the most? Which part played where no one had ever played before? If you've made it this far, comment below, "Now I understand the game." This phrase will show me that you stayed until the end, that you are committed to your professional evolution, and that you are ready to stop being hostage to rumors and become the owner of your image. And take advantage of this moment. Leave your like here in this video. If this content made sense to you, if it helped you see something you hadn't noticed yet, this like shows me that I should continue to create more content like this, which really helps you face the conflicts of the corporate environment with intelligence, clarity, and emotional strength. And more than that, here, we speak the truth that no one has the courage to say about the work environment. Here, you will learn how to protect yourself, how to position yourself, how to grow in the midst of chaos without losing your essence. So, if you're tired of being silenced, of being excluded, of being wronged, this channel is your space. This is where you will find tools to come out stronger from the most unfair situations. And before leaving, pay attention to the video that is appearing on the side. If you've ever felt forgotten or noticed that your boss treats another colleague with much more attention and affection than you need to watch this next video now. In it, I'll show you how to identify if your boss has a favorite, how it affects your career, and what to do to avoid being left behind. Then click here and stay with me, because the journey of those who want to be respected at work does not end now. She is just getting started. Go there. I'll wait for you in the next video.